Honourable Minister, and fellow citizens. One of the perquisites of exceeding the life expectancy in this country by a significant number of years is that you remember things. You remember what the country was like some years ago. But you also, because of one's interest, you remember particular events in time. We've had dozens of little meetings of one kind or another, all talk shops. And this is the very first time that we are having a forum of this kind in this country. It is overdue by several decades, and I share the sentiments expressed earlier about finding the right mix of approaches to the rather varied problems that we face in this country. Just this morning, I looked at the headline in one newspaper about a water crisis. And I didn't have time to read the whole article, but I got the impression that the water treatment plant at Caroni was facing some problems. It's not the first time. And particular irony of this is that when the Honourable Dr. Eric Williams passed away in 1981, we had about a week of weather like this. And here we are in a dry season. We haven't seen a bushfire yet. And here we are at the end of March, and I'm told that water crisis. And the problem, of course, is very complicated. We will not be dealing with it. But environmental problems develop sometimes far distant from the problem itself. And with the big building boom and the deregulation of quarrying, Mr. Minister, we've had an onslaught in the Northern Range, which has dumped silt that Wassa now faces. Wassa has to clean it up. So here is one element in the economy, building, making money, and another part of the economy, a service industry, is having to devote or deflect resources towards solving a problem created by another element in the economy. So I won't be dealing with it at great length. I think it will become apparent when some of the other speakers speak. Now, it is said that comparisons are always odious, and sometimes we have to reflect on the way in which other people see us. And I refer to these various indices that you can call up from all sorts of sources. For quite a while we have been concerned, we've been hearing about the corruption perception index and how we've been sliding. We've been hearing about the Human Development Index. You can get that from the UN. And you'll see that we are managing, but it's not at the levels that other people are managing. And the one that I'd like to mention briefly for you is the Environmental Performance Index, which is an index that has been determined by a consortium of universities and the world authorities to try to measure the relationship between what we say we are doing or going to do and what we actually do. And sadly, Trinidad and Tobago in the Western Hemisphere comes out with a rather dismal performance. We stand at rank number 23 out of 26 countries. Next are countries like Bolivia and Haiti and things like this. So in other words, let us not delude ourselves. We have some serious issues. And then there are the other reality indices. These are the things, are actual measures, not perceptions. Life expectancy in this country is reasonable compared with other parts of the world, but it certainly doesn't compare with Japan. And maternal mortality, it's topical now because we had this tragedy in the South. And again, as Dr. Bratt has pointed out, our performance is middling. Infant mortality, sadly, we're really very, very low down. And a lot of these, of course, are related to broad environmental issues. Then we have lifestyle diseases. Why is it that we have such high levels of asthma in the country? You know, there's a cause of this. It's the air. All the allergens in the air, whether it's produced by industry or otherwise. We have high diabetes. It's related, I'm sure businesses are involved in selling, manufacturing, and distributing and selling food or products and making money. But these are things are real issues that a forum of this kind will have to bear in mind when it starts attempting to find the solutions. There are certain things, nevertheless, on the broader issue of the environment that must be obvious to all of us. Deforestation, again, leading to faster runoff, leading to flooding, and so on, leading to catastrophes, people losing their properties, people dying, and so on. Water shortages. Here we are in a country where our most arid parts of the country, Icarcus and Chakachikari. Do you remember we had floods in Icarcus? We have a high rainfall. We're in the wet tropics. Up in the northeast, the rainfall runs up to about 3,800 millimeters a year. Yet, we're talking in terms of desalination plants. The United Kingdom's average rainfall is about the same as Icarcus and Chakachikari Island. So we're not managing it properly. We're not managing our forests. We have also fish and wildlife depletion because we are overexploiting them. The wildlife laws in this country are totally lunatic. They have no meaning. You can't have a season that's open for 6 months that people can shoot as much as they want. And you end up then with your children never being able to see a deer or a lap except they go to the zoo. So these are some of the issues that flooding. I know that we have had floods. I remember floods when I first joined the public service very, very many years ago. But we've never had floods of the kinds that we're having. Like we have floods in the dry season. This tells you that we are not managing our environment. And I won't dwell at length on some of the other things, but you have traffic congestion. And then you have this infernal problem that seems beyond solution, noise pollution. The thing is now so widespread, and there are business interests who are exploiting the need or the want for FETs. And they want to be able to make as much noise as possible until 5 o'clock in the morning. They're running a business. And yet, a constitutional right of the citizen is to enjoyment of his property. Can you imagine having to plug up your ears? Or can you imagine having to leave where you're living to go and find some peace with a neighbor or some distant place? So these are sort of the problems. The major challenges, in my view, after my several decades of looking at the issues, is one, the inadequacy of the legal framework. The Town and Country Planning Act is an obsolete, irrelevant piece of legislation inherited from colonial times. It has to be replaced. Secondly, Related to that, of course, there must be legislation in which there is enforcement, strong enforcement. Secondly, there is the development of the national strategies and priorities. And this is what this forum is about, starting the discussions that will lead to development of the priorities. I have my own views, which I'll be expressing tomorrow. But this is what is really necessary. National strategies, not sectoral strategies, but things that take the spirit of sustainable development to heart. That is, looking after the needs of, ensuring the needs of the next generation. And third is the commitment to resources for conservation and restoration. Now, already Minister Munilal has engineered a closer collaboration between the Environmental Management Authority and CPEP. CPEP started in a certain way. People call it make work, and they talk about inefficiency. We're looking at human resources. And in my view, and I'm glad to have met the chairman of CPEP this morning, because if we are developing these, committing resources to conservation and restoration, there is nothing to prevent us from deciding to set up special units that would be involved in the conservation and restoration. For example, the EMA is in the process of declaring the Repo Savannah a scientific reserve, a special environmentally sensitive area. Right now, the Forestry Division has one forester and I think 3 or 4 other people who patrol a few thousand hectares of land, which is totally meaningless. People can do what they want. But can you imagine if you've got a community-based organization in the area and you devote resources to training them and devote resources to giving them the infrastructure that's necessary, you're on the way to having real in-depth community involvement in conservation. So my final point is that the objectives of the forum are really well articulated in the little brochure that's been handed up. And I'm sure that we all look forward to the Honourable Minister giving his views on how his government is approaching or will approach the very, very grave responsibilities that we have to future generations. Thank you.